The Evermore podcast is now sponsored by WFST Total Compliance. WFST provides fire safety requirements UK-wide to prepare you and your employees should the worst happen. Do what you do best and visit wfst.co.uk today. Enjoy the episode. Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the Evermore YouTube channel. We are back, getting the band back together again. It's the trio, the dynamic trio, as you can see. That I've been joined by a man who shoveled coal into his ancient computer to be here tonight. Mark is with me, and also a man who loves a bit of ITK rumours. It's Granddaddy Cool himself, Lee Forster. How are we doing, guys?
All good, thank you, Tat.
I'm good, mate. Thank you. Eventually got myself on after an hour of trying.
Yeah, if you see smoke coming from the bottom of Mark's screen there, don't be alarmed. Just put in the comments little fire emojis, and then see, he's got to get the fire extinguisher already. That's how bad the computer is tonight for Mark. He's having some severe technical difficulties. But yeah, we thought we'd jump on and do a show together where we're all back together again. As we said, we're trying to do these ones once a month now instead of once a week as we used to do. But we thought with the season looming, we're already in pre-season. We wanted to do a little show just about really what our season expectations are, a little bit about the squad as well. So we're going to get stuck into that in a minute. Just before we do, a little gentle reminder, if you're new to the channel and you haven't already, smash that subscribe button. We'd love you to come and join us. We're over 4,200 subs now. Loads of room for you guys. Loads of content through the close season. Transfer rumours. Obviously, the live show every Monday at 10 o'clock and the odd rant from me when somebody's pissing me off, which they have done again this week. An ex-Newcastle player. That will be out very soon, Mark, I'm pretty sure. And we are live tonight, so jump in the comments. We've already got a few of you in there as well. We've got Ian again, or Unai Emery, as he likes to be called. Good evening to you, Ian. Carl is in the house. Good to see you. The serial winner, Les, is here. No prizes tonight, Les. Mark's not giving you any more gifts, as he usually does. We've got Shez in there as well. Good to see you too, Shez. JB is saying a motley crew. If you mean Asian rockers, JB, you are right. That is certainly us, mate, without a shadow of a doubt. So we're gonna get... Well, you wear it well, mate. You wear it well, but you're not as old as your computer, that's for sure. Mark's computer was at the Last Supper. It took everybody's order for the fucking meal. That's how old your computer is, well.
Mine was an Apollo 11. That's how old my PC is.
Yeah, who still we have a proper? I'm glad it wasn't. Yeah, bloody hell, it'd be in big trouble, wouldn't it? But we're gonna get stuck right in then to the topics tonight, guys. As I say, it's more of an overview as to what we expect from the season. So the first category we're talking about is obviously the season expectations. I'm going to come to the pragmatist that is Mr. Forster first on this one, because he's prepped as he always is. He doesn't fly by the seat of his pants like other members of the podcast who shall remain nameless. Paul Carter, cough, cough. So what is your expectations of this season? Obviously, last season was amazing. You could never have predicted what was going to happen, mate. But do you have elevated senses of expectations this season, or are you a little bit more pragmatic?
Well, I can't believe you're asking Captain Shit Pants first for expectations for next season. You know?
Yeah, Sergeant Squeaky ass first, mate.
You want to start it on a downer. Jesus. Listen, it's not just last season. Since January 2022, I would probably say that away game at Leeds, we've just been on this continual high for pushing on, well, almost, 18, 20 months now. And I just think, I don't want to be a downer. I do worry a little bit about next season because there's been a lot of improvements from teams that you would have thought would have been challenging us last season. Liverpool, I mean, they've replaced, you think I'm old, you think I'm a granddad, they've replaced three of them in their midfield with obviously McAllister and Slobozai. They'll come strong again next season. Pochettino, I think Pochettino will be transformative for Chelsea. I think he could finally be the right appointment that sees them move forward. So it's going to be difficult, and I just worry a little bit about us with the squad depth that we've currently got. Obviously, we've got a few weeks where that can change, and the amount of competitions we've got to juggle. Obviously, we've got the domestic cups, we've got the league, and this year we've got the Champions League, as everybody's well aware. And I just think the squad depth might bite us. My other concern is if we go on a bad run of results or performances early in the season, I think the crowd will start to get a little bit tetchy and what have you. I think we need to get off to a really positive start. I do think we need to get off to a positive start. But my expectations are next season, top 6. That's what I would be. My expectation is we should be pushing for top 6 next season. I think it would be foolish to expect Champions League qualification again, although I think top 5 next season qualify for the Champions League. Is that right?
I think so, yes. The top 5 that get in, Lee, next season.
Yeah, so I think we should be challenging for the top 6. That should be our goal. You'll hear a lot of Newcastle fans saying, sod that, balls to that, we should be challenging for the Champions League and what have you. But I think realistically, given the squad we've got and the work that they're going to have on their plates next season across 4 different competitions, I think top 6 is where I'd be looking to secure next season.
Absolutely. We'll come on to the holes in the squad in a minute, but I suppose focusing on the league, as Lee's just said there, before we get into the Cups, Mark, what's your take on where the expectations of, I suppose, Newcastle fans should be and where they probably will be? Lee's made a really good point there that we've got a really tough start. Some of them games at the start of the season is double tough. I mean, even Villa at home, the first game, a lot of people might have thought previously, oh yeah, that's 3 points in the bag. But Villa have strengthened massively. It looks like they're going to get Moussa Diaby in as well through the door. Fabrizio Romano's just tweeted it, and that's a fucking hell of a signing for Villa. And they look a serious threat as well, Mark. So as Lee says there, if we don't start well, has Eddie got enough credit in the bank for the fans not to turn too quickly, do you think?
I can't even believe you asked that question. Of course he has. No, I'm not going to have a go at you, but come on. Look, yeah, Villa's going to be a tough start for Newcastle. I think in seasons gone by, it's almost a gimme because Villa have been absolutely atrocious when they've travelled north. But they're a different animal under Unai. They're strengthening well. But there's a few more games that Newcastle are going to come into that opening run that will be tricky. But then we said the same thing last year, and they met every single challenge that faced them. Bar 2, 3.
And they were top sides. They were top sides that beat us, even though they were having iffy seasons. Yeah.
So I don't think there's going to be any pressure on it. I mean, unless it absolutely implodes, then there's no pressure on Eddie whatsoever. A few games go right, there's going to be nothing goes wrong there. He's got enough credit from the last 18 months because the rise from where you were when he took over, that initial period where things just looked a little bit odd, they weren't quite working, but you could kind of get the sense of what he was trying to accomplish with the squad that was there. And then from it was the Cambridge was the biggest kick, and then from there onwards, that the plan was in place. It almost took the Cambridge just to give it a shove over the line, and then from that, he's got so much support and so much credit in the bank, as you put it, that only a complete implosion, I think, would just, and even then, it would take something spectacular for that to change. I can't see.
In terms of the league, kind of, what's your expectation, and where do you think that would be classed as a success, I suppose, to Newcastle fans? Optimistically and pragmatically.
I mean, you want to be back where you were. You want to be getting back into the top 4. That's where ideals. You don't want to lose that position. You don't want to have to then fight back again against the likes of Chelsea and Liverpool and that. Realistically, I think that as great a season as it was last season, it was a. I think that was a one-off in those circumstances. That probably won't happen again. Yeah. But you're strengthening at this point, so then it's not the same situation as last season. I think Lee's right. I would have suggested this season, if you're hitting top 7, top 6, that's a win for you at this point. If that comes along with a cup final again, a cup win, a lengthy run in the Champions League, that's all steps forward as to where you were this time last year again. So I think anything north of 7 is a huge another tick in the box.
Yeah.
No, it's not a step back. I don't think taking a step back, it still will mean European football. You'll still be able to attract that caliber of player in the next season going forward. Maybe it's not Champions League, but you can still build. But it still steps in the right direction to building the entire unit of the club, rather than just that one season hit in the Champions League and then fails. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, we'll come on the Champions League in a second, and we'll kind of get your opinions on that. But just to give you my take on the league, just before I do, Ash is in the comments. He couldn't make it tonight because he was a bit poorly. So good to see you, Ash. Hope you feel a bit better, mate. Get yourself a bovril and enjoy the show. But yeah, just talking about the league, I'm with Lee and yourself, Mark, as well. I think we've got to be aiming for the top 6. Some fans might be a bit negative about that and say, well, why should we? We're in the top 4. And we should be aiming for the top 4. But I think Lee made a really good point there as well. A lot of the usual suspects in the top 4, and I wouldn't say you take it as read that they qualify, but they were so poor last year. Like Chelsea were just an absolute basket case of a club. Liverpool, the old legs were catching up on them, as Lee rightly said. They've refreshed, they've replaced. Someone like Szoboszlai, who we were linked to, could be a real massive transformative player for them in that midfield, as Pochettino as well, in terms of what he's going to do with that Chelsea squad. Because Chelsea have got talented players, but they just couldn't pull it together. And if Pochettino can get that tune out of them, they are going to be a real threat. I don't think Spurs will be a threat. I really don't. I think that I always get his name wrong. Is it Ange Postecoglou?
Postecoglou.
That's a Postecoglou. I just put another syllable there for some reason, God knows why. But I like him. My dad's a Celtic fan, as you know, and he's he thinks he's a great manager. But that club is toxic, and I just don't think that he'll get the time there. I think they've already lost a pre-season friendly, and there's already people turning their eyebrows up at him and stuff like that as well. So for me, I don't think he'll get the time. But going back to us, if we finish in the top 6 and have a lengthy cup run or even win a cup, then for me, I'm with you, lads. I think that is a success. I think Newcastle fans can't think we're going to get in the Champions League as red again. As Lee says, it's a massive amount of football ahead of us. We're fighting on all fronts, and we've probably got a really good, maybe 15 now. We've added a few additions, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. But if you get a couple of big, higher-profile injuries, Lee, like we did last year, that could really tilt us off our axis, couldn't it, in the league, mate?
Yeah, the other thing about not qualifying for the Champions League or finishing in the top 4 or 5, whatever it might be next season, I think you'll have people sniffing around the likes of Bruno.
Yeah.
Because I don't think Bruno's... Yeah, and Botman. I think Bruno is a player that has signed to play Champions League football. Admittedly, we've brought it forward by a year or 2 years, but we might become a bit of a victim of our own success. The success that we've had so quickly, I don't think anybody was expecting it. I think when he signed, Bruno probably thought to himself, it might take us 2 years, 3 years to get into the Champions League. We've got there early, but if we don't qualify next season, who's to say that people aren't going to be sniffing around him? And listen, without a shadow of a doubt in my mind, one day Bruno will end up at Madrid.
Yeah, I agree. Or Barca, or one of the two, yeah.
I think the fan base is a little bit split at the minute. I think you go on social media and you think, you mentioned finishing 6th would be decent. You get rounded on. No, we should be aiming for the same or equivalent to what we achieved last season. Why should we be lowering our expectations? I just think with the amount of work they're going to have on the players, I think 6th would be an achievement. Absolutely a cup run, as Ash has mentioned. And coming back to the people who are going to be in and around us, I think Arsenal, Odegaard and Rice in the midfield is a scary proposition.
Yeah,
I do think Tottenham and Manchester United next season are going to struggle. I think I still see Kane being away. I genuinely think Kane might be away to Munich. There's too much noise for there not to be anything behind that. And they've signed Maddison, and that's it. If Kane leaves, who's Maddison going to supply?
Well, the Maddison one's interesting, isn't it? There was a story going around. I don't know if you saw this, lads, but apparently Maddison said he wanted to come to Newcastle. He had his heart set in Newcastle, but they just wouldn't pay him enough money. And I made a comment and said, well, he couldn't have had his heart set in Newcastle that much then if he wasn't willing to take a slight drop in wages to play for the Tara. We're going to get into players in a minute, but I think we'll possibly sign the right Leicester player, lads.
The other team that I think might struggle a little bit next year to stay within that top 6 sort of area is Man U. They've signed Mason Mount. They've signed Onana and they've signed Johnny fucking Evans. Now, I'm sorry, Mason Mount's not going to, improve their defence, which at times last year was absolutely shit. Let's be fair. You can't dress it up. I mean, the shit 4 goals on a number of occasions. They were absolutely fucking awful, and Mason Mount's not going to solve that. So I think Villa are more likely to be challenging us for the top 6 next season than either Tottenham or Manchester United. I do. But yeah, I would settle for 6th. A good run in the cups. domestic cups that is, and getting out of the group stage of the Champions League. But as you say, we're going to come back onto that in a minute.
Well, we might as well stick with it, Lee, while you're on to it. I mean, the Champions League's obviously a massive achievement. You know, we're all of an age where we remember the last time Newcastle were in the Champions League and how well we did, you know, in different parts of it, with a nice mixture of a team of experience and youth. We seem to have probably more youth and experience, I think, now. You look at the likes of Trippier, Wilson, who are experienced players. You know, obviously Dan Burn is an experienced player, Fabian Shaw, but the rest of them are all really quite young, but they also have Champions League experience with the likes of Botman and Bruno, and I think Isak had one game or something. Tonali's obviously had Champions League experience. What is your expectation of the Champions League, Lee? What are you wanting from Newcastle United in the Champions League, or are you just ready for the ride, mate?
I find this really difficult to answer until the draw's made. I think it's 14th of August. How can you answer what? How can you tell anybody what your expectations are?
Providing we get a good draw, providing we get a shit draw. So right. There's a scenario for you.
I had a look at it today, just to see who we could potentially draw. Captain Shitpants here. He's expecting us to get Bayern Munich, Real Madrid, and AC Milan.
But what games they would be, mate? What games they would be to go to, mate? Honestly,
that's worst case scenario based on the pots I was looking at today. But if you're looking at Feyenoord, RB Leipzig, and Shakhtar Donetsk, you've got every possibility of getting out of the group. For me, whoever we draw in the Champions League, if we can qualify, it gets our name out there. We've progressed in the tournament in our first season back in it for 20 years. But for me, just getting out of that group, and then listen, if you get out of the group, you're in the last 16, you don't know what's going to happen, because there's not a single team, doesn't matter who they are, Madrid, Barcelona, nobody wants to come to St James's Park on a Wednesday night. Nobody wants to come there on a Wednesday night. War flags, I expect this season, will be thrown their absolute family.
Just waving their kids on the end of a flag.
Everything they've got at Champions League games, and no team's going to want to come. So say if you get through the group stage, hopefully we'll get a reasonable draw. You get through the group stage, you're into the last 16, anything can happen. We showed at Arsenal last season we can dig in results when we're not expected to grab a result. We shithoused away to a 0-0 at Arsenal. Who's to say we couldn't go and shithouse away to somewhere, in the last 16, and potentially drag them back to St James's and progress even further? Quarterfinals, dreamland, isn't it?
Absolutely. Mark, Lee makes a great point there. I mean, Newcastle United at home, you said this way before we kind of went on this run and got the Champions League. That atmosphere beamed across the world, where any footballer watching would be like, wow, look at this. I mean, there's players that have commented on it, the increase of intensity in the atmosphere, that the cauldron that is St James's Park going in there. I don't give a shit how many Champions League games you've played or how many Champions Leagues you've won. As a player, that's bound to rattle you a little bit when you come out and see that, mate, isn't it? That atmosphere is electric.
But you've only got to look at what it did to Arsenal the season before last. They walked into St James's Park and didn't know what the fuck had hit them, because they looked lost from minute one of that game. And you're right. There'll be some that will come in and be like, right, this is a challenge to us. This is what we want. You thrive on the hostility of the crowd. I mean, excuse me. They're the ones that the players that go in and play at places like Galatasaray, where the crowd they're vicious in their support for their own club.
Just jump in at that point though. But Galatasaray, the crowd are vicious, but Galatasaray's team's shit.
Yeah, they're not very good. Yeah, if we get them, you're laughing at me. I think we'll beat them. We'll dust them.
We've got a massively, massively vocal fan base, which will create an atmosphere like very few others, and we've got a fucking good team. Yeah. That combined, so I don't think it's right to compare us with Galatasaray, who, let's be honest, are shite.
He means the atmosphere. He means the atmosphere, Mark.
Just that, I think going into that cauldron of an atmosphere where that can, certainly for more inexperienced players, that can have an effect on you. That's all I was getting. I wasn't comparing the two teams. Jesus, they're light years apart. But I mean, look, it will have an effect on some. Some will just see it as a challenge. Some it will just drive on to try and prove the crowd wrong and to shut them up. You see a lot of that. How many times have Newcastle players gone into away sort of grounds and tried to quieten down the crowd that the team that they're playing against? So it's going to be that. But St James's Park on those nights, you go back to that season before last, and I mean, I said it then, just video it, just copy that. Any signing you want to make, just play it out to them, and you can still do that and do it again and again and again for pretty much every single game, because you bottle that atmosphere, and you will sell it to anybody. But it will be a factor, and if the fans are right on it from minute one, it will spur them on. And it's a cliche, it's the 12th man easily, because it just gives you a lift.
But you got to remember as well, I mean, again, we're sadly all old enough to remember this, but we've beat Barcelona at St James's Park. We beat Juventus, I think, at St James's Park. We've smashed, Bayer Leverkusen when they were decent and all that at St James's Park. Bayern Munich, I think we played really well against them at St James's Park. Newcastle United have hosted these nights before, even when we probably had quite indifferent squads, and the atmosphere wasn't anything like it is now, as Lee rightly says, with everything behind it. And there's such a feel-good, positive factor in amongst the fan base. And Lee's right. It can very dangerously tiptoe to over-expectation, and then people can start moaning and groaning when, Willock doesn't hit outside of the pass assist to Isak for a goal and stuff like that. But I hope it doesn't get there too soon. But going back to Champions League, Lee's totally right. The draw is paramount. If we get a draw where teams, you mentioned Galatasaray there. Lee is right. The only thing Turkey are good at these days are hair transplants and teeth jobs. Their teams are fucking dreadful. They're not great. So I think if we get teams like that are from leagues that are going backwards, and we're in arguably the best league in the world against some of the best teams in the world, and we went toe to toe with them and nearly beat them. They've needed, in the place of old Clippity Klopp, they needed about 19 minutes injury time to beat us. And City, we rattled them at St James's Park. So, and that was even before you added some quality in with likes of Tonali, and Isak wasn't even fit that day, if we remember, for the Man City game. So I think, adding the players in that we've got, you're totally right. For me personally, what I'm looking forward to is obviously just seeing us back, at the pinnacle of European football, but also I'm really looking forward to seeing how Eddie Howe adapts against these European managers and these European teams, where some of them don't come and play like Premier League teams play. They play anti-football. Like, Jose was the worst of it, wasn't he? Shithouse and wins in the Milan and stuff like that. So I'm really curious to see Eddie as a young manager, how well he adapts to that, lads. I mean, what about yourselves? Are you thinking that Eddie's probably relishing that challenge as well?
I don't think he'll even attempt to adapt. I think he knows one way of playing. I think the high press, high tempo, 90 minutes worth of running. And I think that's how he'll go. And it might be a bit of a surprise to some of those teams who, if you look at your Italian teams, your AC Milan's where Tonali's just come from.
They sit right back, don't they? Yeah.
They've just got so much time on the ball. Anybody comes to St James's Park and just tries to play it around, stroke it around the 18-yard line and what have you, they're going to get a bit of a shock, because we're literally 100% in terms of pressing and tempo from the very, very first minute. And it could cause a bit of... I'd be very surprised if he'll tweak. He will tweak.
Yeah.
In terms of changing formations, changing the approach, I think he'll just go with what he knows, what's been so successful for the last 18 months.
Yeah, but if it's not broke, don't fix it, Mark, isn't it, really? I think it's what Lee's trying to say there as well. But what about the domestic cups as well, moving on to that? I mean, Lee said there, just before moving to the squad, I think the squad depth is key. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But, do Newcastle have a good enough squad right now, before we go really into it, to go far in the Champions League and still have a run in the Carabao Cup and the FA Cup?
But just to touch on that last part about the teams coming in and just sitting back, I know we're just covering that. But I think that's one of the key things of bringing Tonali in, that it gives you another dynamic to open up those teams with his passing ability. True. We already saw the way that he was spreading the ball around against Rangers. That just gives you a different dynamic going forward. So I think that signing is key to that sort of that those teams coming in and sitting in. He and Bruno will just allow you to open the door.
I can't wait to see those two together. I mean, brilliant! That unbelievable,
phenomenal. But I think that the squad, I don't think is not big enough to compete on all fronts massively. Yeah, I think there is one or two maybe to go. If you look at the number of games that you're going to play, it's going to be a minimum of 46. If you go on 2 deepish cup runs, that game count's going to be 60 plus. So the quality isn't. I think we've seen from the likes of Lewis and things that they're not good enough to step in at that level. They might do you 5 or 10 minutes, but they're not good enough to come in and play to that level for longer. But you add 1 or 2 more, and suddenly that squad becomes much more competitive across all fronts. And you can rest players, and you can leave a Wilson out for a couple of games, or you can take Miggy out, or you can take you can play Anderson for a couple of games. So you can start to do those things where you've got more of those next level players that come in. All of a sudden you've got it. I think there's a big disparity between some. You've got really high level, and then you've got the bottom ones. There's not as much in between that will just come in and do that job. I think
that's the issue. That's where the squad depth is kind of lacking a bit. I think we might as well move on to that one as well, Lee.
Can I just on the domestic cups, Chris, before we
move on? Sorry, just before we look at the squad. Yeah, go on, mate.
Yeah, I obviously went to Wembley last season. I attended all the cup games and what have you. I think the domestic cups might be the ones, the competitions that suffer next season. I think for a lot of the cup games last season, apart from the very, very early rounds at Tranmere, for example, Sheffield Wednesday in the cup, Howe didn't rotate. He rotated the very early rounds, but when we went Palace, we rotated a touch. But then when we got Leicester, full strength, he went full tilt. I genuinely don't think he will do next season, because particularly if we qualify out of the group stage of the Champions League. And I would love us to go deep in both of those competitions again. Just another, I think the players learned so much from Wembley this season that another tilt at a League Cup final or an FA Cup final, you'd see a different team. But
they would be better this time. If they went back again, they would be more experienced. They'd be more in-game savvy, wouldn't they? But moving on to the squad, I think Annie's just bashed in a comment straight away there. Before we decided to do this episode, we were talking about maybe squad depth and how we were missing a couple of players, and it looks like we're probably going to get 2 in the door. So kicking off with Harvey Barnes before I move on to the other one, which definitely opens opinion that we were talking about before we came on air. But as Andy says there, Harvey Barnes gives us and goes at the edge of the box, and it will be a big help against teams sitting deep at home. Now, obviously, this transfer has came with a little bit of eyebrow raising by some of the fan base who love to wear headbands and play Helios games, and I've nicknamed them the Maximists. They're probably still crying now with the poster of Maxi singing Lionel Richie songs, but Maxi's obviously gone. Does Harvey Barnes, in your opinion, Lee, and I'm going to get Mark's as well, and I'll give you mine. Does Harvey Barnes make this squad stronger, and does Maxi even make it weaker? What do you think there?
I can answer both of those differently. Harvey Barnes, yes, makes the squad stronger, but losing Maxi also makes the squad weaker.
Makes it weaker. But Barnes in place of Maxi is probably better to phrase that way.
Right.
Barnes in place of Maxi. Is that stronger now, having a player as consistent as Barnes rather than a player who's inconsistent?
Yes. Yeah, it is, because you'll get 30 plus games out of Barnes a season. Barnes is far more suited, I think, to Eddie Howe's style of play, how he wants his players to play in terms of energy, work rate. He'll get up and down. Listen, I know we'll probably talk about Maxi in a little bit more depth, but I was Maxi's biggest fan and biggest critic. The amount of times I've seen him sort of be bundled off the ball in the strawberry corner by a fullback, and it just stares down for 60 seconds and then gets caught offside when we win the ball back in around half, sort of thing. You'll not get that with Barnes. I think Barnes is far more robust than Maxi. Listen, I love Maxi. He was a real sort of shining light in what were probably the darkest times into the Ashley era.
Yeah,
he really was. He was the one player that used to get bums off seats. But I do think since it became apparent how Howe wanted to play and the type of player he wanted to play, having his squad, I think Maxi's days, unfortunately, have been numbered for quite some time now. I think it's inevitable that he was going to go. But yes, to answer your question, are we stronger, in my opinion, replacing Maxi with Barnes? I would say yeah.
Mark, just on the Barnes one, I seen a great comment. I think somebody somebody had tweeted, one of the Maximus had tweeted through the tears and the rise that, I'm going to miss my man.
You're going to have to leave them alone at some point.
Yeah, I will when he's completely gone off the radar. After Barnes plays like 3 games and he's meant to get man of the match, and then they all say Maxi who. But somebody posted the video of the Wolves goal, which was a mint goal, right? No doubt about that, right? But somebody just like quoted it and said, the fact that his last goal was 11 months ago just answered your own question. I thought that's bang on the money. You're talking about a player here, Mark, who scored more goals in a relegated side and hit this than Maxi did his entire spell at Newcastle. The question to you is the same. I will phrase it better because I'm less brain dead now. I was too busy looking at the emails before. Sorry, Lee. Are we stronger replacing Maxi? There we go, with Harvey Barnes.
Yes, I go back to what Lee said before, though. I agree. Harvey Barnes makes you stronger. Losing Maximum makes the squad
because you
weaker.
lose the X factor, you lose something different off the bench.
Exactly.
Yeah,
right.
I get that, and I agree with that.
In a like-for-like swap, I think Barnes gives you more. Look at as an average over the last 4 years, he's got 5.5 assists a season. Maxi has under 5. You look at goals over the last 4 seasons. Harvey Barnes has 9 on average goals a season. St. Maximum has 6, 12, so 3. So the levels in
did I like count that, didn't it, maybe? 3.
3, yeah. I had to count up to 12 first. But look, it gives you an overall. The argument somebody put on there is, well, he only got 1 assist last season. Yeah, fine. But the season before, he got 10. This season, he scored 13 goals on a side that was shit. And Leicester were absolutely
no striker, so he took it upon himself.
But he chips in, and he will do that. He can score goals. He can hit them from distance. He can get in the box. He can work down that left-hand side. He's got pace. He doesn't miss an awful lot of games. He's missed some. I know that was pointed out. He has missed a few games, but he's still top 30 games last season, I think, in terms of the number of times he played. So, yeah, I think overall he makes you stronger because he gives you much, much more of an end product.
Yeah, I would say so. Just to add that comment up there from Mags on top, he's just saying a bit of inside info that Jamal Lewis to Watford, Darlow to Bournemouth, which has obviously been out there already, that Darlow's come home from the American tour to sign for Bournemouth. And to be fair, I think Darlow's still a decent keeper. I think you do a good job for Bournemouth. And obviously, Livramento medical booked in tomorrow, which we'll come on to in a minute. So just talking about the Barnes and Maxi thing. I mean, Barnes is a cracking player. I think I said this in my videos when we did the little rant videos, that if we had signed Barnes, in the Bruce era, we would have thought, we'd won the fucking lottery. And now you've got fans, turn their nose up at him because they don't want him there. But the kid is so consistent. And as Lee rightly says, he's an Eddie Howe player. He can go both ways. He can be just as dynamic going forward and just as resourceful coming back and getting a foot in. And that's what you have to be in this Newcastle squad. I mean, look what's happened to Joe Willock. He's gone from being a attacking midfielder who just shoots on sight and scores goals to an all-around player that's tracking back, winning the ball, then breaking with speed and getting us up the pitch and hitting brilliant assists, for Alexander Isak. And I really think that likes of Wilson and Isak will be licking their chops playing with Barnes because he's got an ability to beat a man. He's got an ability to find a pass. And also, I think he offers something that we don't have a lot of. And it's a midfielder. I've seen that. Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah. Actually, the 5K prize is even better than that, but I won't reveal it until we get close. But I think what Barnes gives us, just finally on Barnes, is we don't have a lot of our players that shoot from distance, and Barnes can do that. You've seen some of the highlight reels of the kid. He can pull a trigger from range, and I think only Bruno really tries that. Willock seems to have lost his confidence for shooting, certainly outside of the area. Joe Linton has the occasional effort, but I think we need a player that, if teams are tight-packed in the box, rather than trying to walk in the back of the net, just someone who can pull a trigger from range. And I think Harvey Barnes will give us that. So for me, I agree with you, lads. I think that he's a great addition, and I think I can't wait to see him in a black and white shirt. But just moving away from Barnes to the next one, which we did cause a bit of controversy when we were talking before we came on. Lee, just getting into this. So the story is that Barnes is going to be done, which is great. He's already been in the ground. We've seen him in the getting his medical and stuff like that. He's probably going to hop on a flight very soon over to America. The other signing looks like it's going to be done is the Southampton fullback Livramento, 20 years old. Obviously, real good ability, young lad, young English right back. Had a really bad injury, I think, last season, so he missed a lot of football. The bit that's maybe triggering a few people, maybe yourself evenly, is that we're dropping 30 million quid on this kid, and he's not even a left back, which is the position that we need. So what's your take on that one, Lee? And do you think that's a good move, or are you a bit
It's a strange one. It's a strange one. When we were talking before we went on air, I think it was suggested that we might be buying him to play as a right-footed left-back. If we buy in Livramento to play as a right-footed full-back, Harvey Barnes is an even better signing, because he'll have to do some work to back him up on the left-hand side. It's one that doesn't make a great deal of sense to me. It might be something that I'm missing and what have you, but if we're spunking 30 million quid on Livramento, I personally think would have been far better served going out and buying a bona fide left back, a left-footed left back. Just gives you so much more attacking threat when you've got a left back who can get up and down. A Tierney, for example. I mean, Tierney apparently wants to go back to Celtic.
I heard that. Yeah, he wants to go back to Celtic. Yeah,
I'd say Tierney tomorrow. Because look at what Trippier gives us on the right-hand side in terms of pushing opposition fullbacks back into their final third. If we had somebody similar on the left-hand side doing that, similar to what Trippier does, it just gives us a different dimension. Dan Burn tried to do it last season, and with limited success, because he's not a wing-back. Dan Burn isn't. He's a centre-half who's playing a left-back. No. And just, as I said, this is one that I don't really get. But what I would say is they've not missed anybody yet in terms of transfers. They've not had a miss yet. You've got to trust what they're deciding to do. They'll no doubt have a plan. And as the saying goes, trust the process. But for me, at the minute, I just don't understand the logic behind the Livramento deal. 30 million on right-footed left-back, if that's what the plan is, doesn't make a great deal of sense to me.
Yeah, it's a strange one, Mark. I mean, I'm a big fan of Tierney as well. And, we've done the Rumour Has It video. We talked about Tierney quite a lot. I mean, the move back to Celtic kind of makes sense, because apparently he's homesick and he wants to go back. Maybe his partner wants to go back or something. It's like, the players have families and maybe they don't settle and they want to go back home. So maybe that's the reason.
He should come to Newcastle, because according to social media and opposition fans, Glasgow is only half an hour from Newcastle.
It's only up the road. Yeah. I did laugh at that. I think PK tweeted like a 3-hour journey, didn't he? It's only up the road. I know I've done that drive myself several times. But, I mean, if Tierney's got his heart set and going to Celtic, Mark, does this look almost like Livramento's maybe not the first choice, and they've maybe been like, right, we need somebody in. He's the second choice. But as Lee's saying there, it doesn't really make a lot of sense. I mean, we're really exposing that left-hand side. And, everything goes through Trippier. Even pre-season, you saw against Rangers, Trippier. Tonali, yes, plays as part of the goal. And Anderson, brilliant as well for the goal. But our play is so predominantly down that one channel that we're quite easy to nullify if teams do a little bit of homework on us. And I think I'm with Lee, Mark. Proper left-footed left-back makes sense. So this transfer does seem a bit odd.
Yeah, look, he's never played left back at this level. If you go back and look and watch, or look at look at the heat map from not last season when he was injured, the season before, it's all right hand side. He's never played in the Premier League at left back. So if he's coming in to do that, they've seen something elsewhere that they like, because I don't have access to anything from the from the youth level, from the Premier League 2, anything like that. We don't have access to that. So if they've seen something that, like, and as Ash said, if you can play across multiple positions, great. To me, if that left back is pivotal going forward, you want a natural left back in that position. The flip of the argument is, I had seen the rumours that Harrison Ashby might go out on loan to somewhere like Swansea this season, and if that's the case, then a right back is almost a must. So to bring him in, it's an awful lot of money for somebody that's going to come and sit behind him.
It is a lot.
Especially
with FFP, they keep crying FFP. You drop 30 million quid in a backup right back where you could get a proper left back.
It depends on what that 30 million is made up of, though. If it's 15 million sort of in stages and then add-ons, that could be the case. But do they see him as a natural successor to Trippier? Or the other one, do they see Trippier playing more at left back, potentially?
And he has played there for England. I remember a very feisty argument, Lee, with Trippier left back for England back in a previous life.
And the other one is, have they seen more now of Matt Targett that suggests that he can now take over from Dan Burn and be the more naturally left-footed player down that side, give you more going forward, to work well with Harvey Barnes if that is indeed going to be the player that's playing down that side. There's loads. Look, it's one of those. It's easy thing now to just say trust the process, but you kind of have to, because as Lee said, they've not missed on anybody. I saw Ash's comment there about Chris Wood being a miss, but I genuinely still think that he came in and he did a job at the time. Yeah. He wasn't a world beater, but at the time he was the right signing to decimate another relegation rival in that fight, but also give you a fighting chance with somebody up front that can hold the ball and move. And that's all he did. And he did his job and you moved him on and you haven't lost anything by it. So I think that's still a hit.
True.
It may not be as successful as the others, but it's still a hit. And that's it. I think you've just got to trust them.
Yeah, I'd rather sign Robbie Keane now. Never mind Chris Wood. I think Robbie Keane at 49 and 30 stone or whatever could do a better job. But I suppose just looking at if we get these two lads through the door, I suppose the question is, do we need one more, as I said in Ocean's 11? Do you think we need one more? So if we get Barnes in, Lee, but we've lost Maxi, and we get Livramento in, then Ashby goes on loan, as Mark says, do we need more position strengthened in your opinion? Is Tonali that six?
We need left back. I think from a midfield point of view, I think we're well stocked. I wouldn't like to be picking that midfield next season.
Oh, Jesus.
You've got Bruno, Tonali, you've got, I think, Willock has been disrespected a lot. People seem to be forgetting him because apparently it's nailed on that it'll be Bruno, Tonali and Joe Linton.
There's a question, Lee. What if he goes to three at the back, three centre-backs? What if he does that?
Can't see it.
No?
I genuinely can't see it. I think he's 4-4-3. You said it probably 6 minutes into this pod. Why change if it's not broken?
Well, yeah, if it's not
Did
broken.
Did you just say 4-4-3? If you just
4-3-3. 4-3-3.
You can't.
We're definitely going to win the league with an extra player, Lee.
So your midfield's well stacked, as I say. You've got Bruno, you've got Tonali, you've got Joe Linton, you've got Willock, you've got Longstaff, you've got Anderson potentially up front.
Lewis Miley. We're talking about Lewis Miley.
Lewis Miley, he'll get minutes this season up front. You've got Miggy, you've got Gordon, you've got Wilson, you've got Isaac. You're going to have Harvey Barnes. It's for me the one position we have to strengthen is left back. I think we're quite well stocked everywhere else. Listen, I'd be quite happy to see us bring another 2 or 3 in, but for me, the absolute priority has got to be left back.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. Mark, what about your take on it? If we get the two lads in, obviously Tonali's at midfield. It's funny because I think I saw, I think it was Craig Hope actually said that we're all obsessed with Tonali being the deep line midfielder, but because he's got the ability to go forward, I almost think him and Bruno are going to be interchangeable in terms of a 6 and an 8, and between the two of them, I think they'll do that mid-game, and then Joe Linton will just be that beast, or Willock will be, that kind of energy, or even Longstaff, whoever fills that third role in midfield. But I think between Bruno and Tonali, I think they'll have that ability to do that up and down. Outside of the two, Barnes and the fullback, if it is Livramento, what else do we need, in your opinion?
I agree. Left back, I think that's maybe his one. I think that's maybe he's harsh on the other two because we haven't seen an awful lot of Matty Targett playing for Newcastle due to injury and things, but and Dan Burns' form. The other one I just think is centre back, and I think Ash put it in the comments as well. And I do think there's a lack of depth at centre back. That if Shaw or Botman go down.
Yeah.
Yes, you could switch Burn into play.
Rephrase that because Shaw goes down 8 times a game. You mean if he's
when Fabian Shaw goes down? Yeah. Look, at some point, one of those head injuries is going to knock him out for a couple of games because he's actually going to be out for a good
long time. And he's not getting any younger. He's not getting any younger, so recovery time's longer.
And again, you want a natural successor to him or somebody to start to take over him. Is that this Disassi kid from Monaco or somebody else? This is the next question. And again, that's a lot of money thrown because they're talking 40 something million, I think, for him. But I do think centre-back is an area where behind Botman and Shared, there's not an awful lot of depth. Lascelles can do a bit of a job, but you're not going to trust him against the best. Despite the game that he had against Haaland, I don't think you see that again. Who else is there? You've got the likes of Emil Kraft to come in who could maybe do that. I don't think I would want him playing against top level opposition at centre back.
So if we've got 40 million quid left to spend this summer after potentially Barnes and Livramento come in, where are you going? Are you going for a left back or a centre half?
If you can only buy one,
yeah,
I'd go left back.
I'd go left back. But I'd be seriously trying to spread that across the two if you can. But
left back and alone.
Left back and maybe. But yeah, I think you have to look at the depth for both of those positions, because I think those are now the two weakest positions in the squad. Not in the first team, but as the squad depth.
But if we sign a left back, if we do sign a left back, you've got Target as your backup, and Byrne becomes a third option for centre half.
That makes sense.
So for me, a left back's the priority.
That's a fair argument.
What about up front? So say we get the left back, Lee. Say we get Tierney, or we get Hernandez from AC Milan, or whoever. We get somebody on loan, even whatever it is. I'm just throwing them out there. But say we get a good left back who can attack like Trippier, can go back and go forward, and we've got that position locked in and sorted. What happens if or when Callum Wilson gets injured or Isak picks up another knock and we've got nobody up there? Are we going to rely on Miggy filling in there or Gordon filling in there? Or do we need to maybe get another player that can play up front, like a striker who's happy to almost, I don't know what stage of your career you have that player in, if he's happy to be interchangeable and maybe play the cup games and fill in, when the other two aren't fit, a bit like what Wood was doing. Do you get that player in, or do you rely on?
I'm touching every single piece of wood that I can lay my hands on at the minute. You'd have to be shit out of luck to be losing Wilson and Isaac simultaneously.
Touch wood.
That would be an absolute. But I think Howe might have taken a look at Gordon in the Euros and thought he's potentially an option if that scenario came to pass. God forbid it did, because, as I say, it would be devastating. But I think Gordon showed enough in the Euros to show that he could do a job there.
He can play there.
He's not a Wilson. He's not an Isaac. Yeah, it's not his natural position. But he's got a lot of pace, and he'll put himself about.
You in the comments.
Yeah. So for me, I simply cannot see. I was looking at signing another striker. I would say probably that midfield is where we absolutely least need any additional heads. And I would say following that, you'd be looking at strikers, probably the least area, the area that needs the least attention.
Yeah, would you agree with that, Mark? Do you think like some of the guys in the comments are backing what Lee's saying, that Gordon could do the job in there?
I think we've said that in probably the last two what's going on Mondays, haven't we? Where he's looked so good playing across in that sort of middle position for England.
Playing centrally,
you could do that. The other one, just to throw into that mix, and because of he did such a good job when he first came to the club on loan, you could make an argument to say at a push, Joe Willock could play in that position. He's got pace. He can finish. He's not a striker. Let's face it. But if you had to fill in for a game, Joe Linton would be the other one.
I'd rather put Joe Linton up front than Joe Willock.
Yeah, but you could. There are players that could fill in for the odd game that maybe it's a.
Not Dan Burn though, Adam, because he can't head the ball in the box, mate. So it would be in serious trouble there, mate.
But Miggy as well. You talked about Miggy could play in that position potentially. You can. Yeah. There are players that you can move around. If it's long term, then Christ Almighty, if you lost both of them, then that's a huge blow.
Benzema on loan, mate. Benzema on loan. Job done. Imagine the salt. It's
all done. Zero wages, zero fee. Just bring them on loan for a few months. Yeah.
I agree with you guys. I honestly, unless Howe's maybe the Livramento thing, just thinking about that again. Kraft's coming back from this injury. Maybe this injury is quite a bad one, and he's a lot further away from where maybe Howe and the team want him to be. And as you say, Mark, Ashby doesn't look quite ready for it yet. He looked all right when he come on the other day, but maybe Howard's just thinking he needs that experience. So I'm going to loan Ashby out. We've got a chance to sign a kid who's playing in the Premier League. We'll get him in. He can be Trips' cover. And then maybe the left back is still an option for the money that's left over, and we'll see a left back coming in. But I agree with you, Lee. It'd be disappointing if we can't get someone like a quality of a Tierney coming in. But you know, the loan market is still there. I mean, we've got 7 weeks of the transfer window left. There could be deals, and especially with FFP, where people need to balance their wage books, you could end up with a real player. I mean, you know, was it Forest got Lodi on loan, didn't they, last season, who should have been nowhere near Nottingham Forest? We could end up with a really good player on loan at Newcastle United. We don't even know what's happening behind the scenes. So, yeah, maybe we're panicking a little bit too soon, and hopefully by the time the season kicks off, we'll have this squad right. I think the main key players are already in, going over to America. I know Howe was getting frustrated, so I think that's why they've accelerated the Harvey Barnes deal, and obviously Livramento might come in as well. And then those two will go to America, get that bonding with the squad, because Howe's big on that, and then come back and play in the Cellar Cup as well, and we'll get to see them at St James's Park as well, lads. But just
I wouldn't be surprised to see a couple of quite high-profile learn to buys coming towards the end.
I think so. Well, Mags on top mentioned Chiesa there in the comments, and there's been a lot of word about Chiesa, noise about Chiesa. Now, I think his agent has come over to England and spoke to a couple of clubs. I'm sure we're one of them, because you know everyone knows Newcastle's a big project, the money and all that stuff. Liverpool's another. I mean, I know you guys are very skeptical, but I will do backflips down Whitney Bay seafront if we sign Chiesa on a loan on the sand, mind you, so don't hurt myself. So if we sign Chiesa on a loan to buy a deal, but just really quickly, Lee, you threw it out there. Chiesa on loan. What's the likelihood, mate?
I'd say slim to nil, to be perfectly honest with you.
Well, mate, you could have said that about Isaac and Botman and Bruno and everybody else before, mate.
I said high profile. Listen, it's potentially could happen, because I think they'll be looking at these loans with an option to buy at the end of next season, because what they'll be doing, they'll be looking at what the revenue streams are going to look like in 12 months' time. And I think that's why I say I think there'll be a couple of high-profile loans with an option to buy coming potentially at the end of the window. Whether it's Chiesa, I wouldn't expect, because again, not because he's not quality, but again because I think it's not an area where we need to be focusing on.
True.
Mark suggested centre back. I'm thinking left back.
Yeah.
There might be your areas where those loans with options to buy actually come in.
Ben Chilwell on loan, mate. Job done. What a signing that would be. So just wrapping up, guys, then in the last category before we jump off. Just really a kind of almost like a match prediction thing. Mark, we'll come to you first just to give Lee time to sweat, because I threw this on him when we started and he went pale.
Panic setting already.
League finish for Newcastle United. We've already mentioned kind of what we think is success this season. What do you think is a prediction? I won't hold you to it. It'll be interesting. We'll go back and look at the end of the season. But what do you think? Where do you think Newcastle are going to finish this coming season with all these other games to play, squad being stretched, all of the stuff we've just talked about for the last 50-odd minutes? Where do you see Newcastle United finishing in the league this season?
I'm going to go 5th.
Ooh, Champions League spot.
5th. I'm going to go 5th. Yeah, I think the additions to the squad, I know there's the extra games. I just think that they're built, or the players that they're bringing in improve again on what was already there. And I think, yes, it's a step down in terms of position in the league, but I still think it's progress. So I think fifth and a good run in the Champions League with a decent draw. I'll say now. I think you'll get relatively lucky in the Champions League.
Ooh, good. Just for Les's question there, I think Joe Linton is going to go out a bit later. I think there was an issue with the work permit. I'm sure I saw Keith Downey or one of the trusted journalists, say that he will go out a little bit later, because I think they were just kind of getting over the work permit and stuff like that. So just coming to you, Lee. Ian's gone big, 4th and a cup, mate. Talk about a season and a half, mate. What are you thinking, Lee? Come on. You know, Sergeant Shitty Pants. What are you thinking?
Can I start by saying I'm a little bit pissed off?
Why
you didn't give us the opportunity to talk about our spaghetti-eating, Moretti drinking, moody Italian on the transfer side.
It wasn't the comments before. It wasn't the
just how fucking incredible he looked on Tuesday.
For 45 minutes, he did look incredible.
I'm watching that, and I'm just literally foaming at the mouth thinking about him and Bruno playing together.
Oh,
just let me get that in.
Do you know, I think he'll take a lot of the pressure off Bruno as well, and let Bruno be a bit freer in his game, because I think we do put a lot of pressure on Bruno as a team. I think that they give him the ball so much. Do it, Bruno. Do something. And I think having Tonali is another option. They might go, right, you have it, Tonali. You have it, Bruno. And didn't it change?
I think Bruno does that himself as well. I think he feels
he does.
like he has to be that take that responsibility, and hopefully Tonali coming in will sort of alleviate some of that. So yeah, I just had to get something in about how much I can't wait to see them two in the middle of the park.
That's what the private chat's for, mate. You need to learn how to work these things, man. I know you're a granddad now, but you need to know how to work these things.
You know what? One more mention of a granddad. The next time I'm on this pod, I'm going to come in a tweed jacket.
Do you need your pills, mate? Sorry, I'm only joking.
Captain Chip Pants is going to surprise you. He is. I think we'll finish third, and I think the only two teams that will finish above us is Man City and Arsenal.
Hang on a minute. All that stuff before about top six and all that, and you've just pulled third out of the top drawer, mate. Where's that coming from?
Can we have our lead back, please? Because I don't recognise this one.
It's an AI version. It's an AI version of Lee. It's not really Lee. You've just created.
Maybe I'm being really naive. But I just think the momentum behind the club at the moment, and as I said, talked about the last 18 months, I just think the momentum's firmly with us. Chelsea have got to regain that momentum. Liverpool have got to regain that momentum. We've got that momentum already. If we have a strong pre-season, I'm not worried about Villa first game of the season. We'll wipe the floor with them. Literally no doubt whatsoever about that. And I genuinely think that momentum will carry on. And I think Man City and Arsenal will be the only two teams in front of us.
No, okay, Mark, clip that third prediction by Lee, and this is going to get played back at the end of the season if he starts getting worried when we've had a couple of dodgy results, mate.
All right, when we get Wycombe Wanderers at home in the third round of the FA Cup, I'll be shitting myself outside.
Yeah, you will be. There's no doubt about that, mate. Emotional roller coaster it is for you in a season, mate. You really feel everything. That's why we love you, mate. But yeah, that's my prediction. I might be a bit more reserved than the third, mate. I'm going to go for fifth. I think we're going to go fifth as well, same as you, Mark. I think that with the Champions League spot being the fifth place, I just think that we'll have that desire, that intensity, that hunger to get that spot. I do think the squad will be stretched massively, and I think we do need some more additions. There's no doubt about that. Even on the back of these two lads coming in, there is a lot of dead wood still in this squad, as Mark said before, that you wouldn't trust them in big games and cups and leagues. You know, when you've got a Champions League tie against Real Madrid on Wednesday night, you wouldn't trust, Hayden or Hendrick or these other, average players. Maybe a bit harsh to say that Isaac Hayden, because he can do a job, but we need to get better quality players in their position, which means we have to get them out. And whether that's the young kids coming through, whether that's your Jay Turner Cooks or your Lewis Mileys or whatever, but we need to have better quality in behind the first team squad to navigate this season and be successful, because there will be times in the league where if we do get through the Champions League group stages, and who knows what happens after that, as you say, Lee, if we've got a sniff of getting anywhere near Champions League glory and those fixtures are piling up like Jurgen Klopp whinges about, we might have to play Lewis Miley and Jay Turner Cook instead of Tonali and Bruno, because we've got Bayern or Barca or somebody on a Wednesday night. So we'll end up in that position. And unfortunately, we're not like City. We can't just pull a world-class player off the bench to replace a world-class player in the lineup. We're not there yet. We will be in a few years. But all that said, very similar to what you said as well, Lee, positivity, the feel-good factor behind the club. I think the youth of the squad and the hunger in the squad as well. I think we won't go backwards this season. And I know some people say, well, fourth to fifth is backwards, but I think finishing fifth and maybe a cup win this coming season will be success. And I think the more these young players get success, the better they'll become, the more hungry they'll become for it, the more ruthless they'll become for it. And then you end up building a team of serial winners and adding winners to that winners team. Like Manchester United did for years, like Arsenal did for years, like Chelsea before that. And I just think, for me, I think 5th this season. You know, and any one of the finishers we've all said, you know, would definitely be a Mark success, I would say. So yeah, just a couple of comments before we go there as well. What we got here? No, I don't know what the comments are. They're all just talking amongst themselves. I won't pull them up. That's us pretty much wrapped up, guys. We've done an hour there. So thank you so much to everybody. Yeah, good comment there, Lee. No fear. That's Ian. No fear. That's exactly where we need to be. So yeah, we're all wrapped up for this episode. Thank you so much to everybody who jumped in the comments. As always, it really helps the episode flow. As I mentioned at the start, if you are new to the channel, or you haven't subscribed, or you know somebody who just has a Newcastle United content whole in their life and they want to see some quality stats and chats, click subscribe, come and join us. We're over 4,200. We're closing in on 4,500. That's the next milestone. Loads of content. The live show every Monday with me and Mark at 10 o'clock. Pop-up videos and these kind of things once a month. So don't hang around and watch other crap channels. Watch us. We're the best. So smash that button. Smash that like as well.
Anybody wants to know? Chris was struggling for something to say about it. So
I really was. I'm sorry. I was struggling to pull the ripcord there. It just came out. Sorry, guys. You know. So if you're not a crap channel, that wasn't affecting you, so you're okay. But yeah, as I said, that's us all done. We'll be back soon enough, guys. We'll be off to watch the pre-season friendlies. Let's keep supporting that team of United. Thanks for watching. We'll catch us all later.
Cheers, guys.
Hey, guys.